Oh, poor Joe Biden. It wasn't exactly a holly jolly Christmas for our former fearless leader. There was no rocking around the Christmas tree. This was the first year since 2021 that cackling Cam Harris and her cackling choir did not perform Johnny B. Biden's holiday favorites. There is a reason that John Biden was experiencing strong feelings of bitterness this holiday season. Johnny is feeling something that no one wants to experience in their twilight years. I kind of feel bad for Johnny B. Biden because at his age, there's absolutely nothing you can do about this. The reason John Biden was identifying as the Grinch this Christmas instead of borrowing attire from Nikki Haley and dressing as Saint Nick, John Biden, he was experiencing an overwhelming feeling of regret. Believe it or not, I can actually relate to how John Biden is feeling. I'm sure all of us can. 4 years ago, it was the Christmas of 2020. I decided to take the last 3 weeks of the year off of work. I was essentially off the entire month of December. Now, at the time, I had been doing YouTube part-time for about a year. I was only able to upload 3 videos a week because I was spending all my time sitting behind a desk at a job that I hated. Throughout 2020, I kept going back and forth as to whether I should quit my job and pursue YouTube full time. Now, these were just random thoughts throughout the year. I didn't have too much time to think about it because I was so busy wasting 45, 50 hours a week at this job and trying to build this channel at the same time. I was constantly exhausted. I would wake up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'd work on the channel for a couple of hours. I'd go to work, get back home around 6 or 7. I'd go right back to working on the channel again. When I took off the entire month of December in 2020, I didn't know it at the time, but those 3, maybe 4 weeks, they changed my life. For the first time all year, I finally had time to think. And I'm talking about really think. Thinking without interruption, thinking without distraction. During those 3 weeks, I dedicated myself to the channel. Instead of uploading 3 videos a week, I was uploading 2 videos a day. The channel was slowly, very slowly starting to gain traction. At that point in time, those 3 weeks were the best 3 weeks of my life because I was doing exactly what I wanted to be doing. Going into 2021, I had a decision to make. Was I going to take a massive risk? Was I going to quit my job and pursue my dream of doing YouTube full time? Or was I going to play it safe? Was I going to listen to my parents, my friends who were begging me not to quit my job? It's a steady paycheck. You have benefits. You have health insurance. You have a 401k. It was one of those situations where my parents were right and they were wrong at the same time. I understood their concerns. They wanted financial security for their son. At the time, YouTube was not close to paying the bills. The channel was only averaging around $200 every month in revenue. But what my friends and my parents couldn't see was the price that came along with supposed security. A price that I was not willing to pay because I didn't want to look back in 10 years. I didn't want to look back at 45, 50 years old, looking back at myself in 2020 thinking, what if? What if I had taken that risk? What if I had pursued my dreams? I didn't want to be 50 years old living with regret and it being too late to do a damn thing about it. Fortunately, I trusted my instincts and it was the best decision I ever made. Can't say the same for Johnny B. Biden. Johnny B. is filled with regret. He feels like he played it safe. After 50 years in politics, he's just now coming to the realization that playing it safe gets you nowhere. It's the equivalent of being the nice guy. The only thing being the nice guy gets you is a premiere date with your primary hand on prom night for a passionate festival of wanker spanking. Unfortunately for John Biden, he is going to be living with this regret for the rest of his life because his time has ran out. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Quick programming update. We're going to be back to our regular schedule tomorrow and Tuesday. I finished up the Huge Embarrassing Failure Awards yesterday. My editor, he is working his magic on it as we speak. The HEF Award should be available on New Year's Eve. Headline at the Washington Post: Joe Biden's lonely battle to sell his vision of American democracy. I rarely give credit to the Washington Post, but this was an excellent article because they detailed the perspective of Johnny B. Biden as he prepares to leave the White House and return to his happy place, the Delaware dungeon. Problem is, John Biden is returning to his happy place filled with regret. The Washington Post highlights several regrets that John Biden has from the last 4 years. One regret is not trusting his instincts and nominating Merrick Garland as Attorney General. Now, normal people hated this nomination because Merrick Garland was an unmitigated disaster. But Johnny Biden, he regrets this decision for a different reason. I regret selecting Judy Garland. That bastard screwed me, Johnny B. He failed to put the object of my despise in prison. He allowed the orange man to continue living his freedom, and that is the reason I lost this election, damn it! Johnny B. also regrets not putting his name on woke welfare checks. He regrets not putting his name on the free money that he sent to Americans to help them get over the COVID. According to the Washington Post, John Biden lifted the country out of the Fauci fog. But he doesn't get credit for it because he didn't sign his name on the welfare checks. That's not the reason that John Biden doesn't get credit for restoring the economy. He doesn't get credit for restoring the economy after the COVID because he didn't do that. Matter of fact, you could make a strong case that John Biden made things worse. The reason people didn't feel economic relief from John Biden is because that economic relief did not exist. I don't remember how much money the government was printing and giving away on the COVID checks. Couldn't have been much. Let's just assume it was $1,000. $1,000 for most families, that would help them for about 30 days. Problem was, under the lack of leadership of Johnny B. Biden, that $1,000, it couldn't buy shit. Literally. $1,000 could not buy a turd. Inflation was so high under Johnny B in late 2021 going into 2022, $1,000 was essentially a trip to the grocery store. 10 years ago, that much money could buy 3, maybe 4 grocery carts worth of groceries. In the Biden economy, it got you a cart full of great value garbage. No name brand stuff. No name brand Preparation H to soothe the bruised caboose. Instead of Preparation H, you were getting the great value boodle soother. The Washington Post claimed that history is going to be kind to John Biden. According to the Washington Post, historians rank Johnny B as the 14th best president in American history, while Donald Trump ranks dead last. This was one of the biggest flaws in the Biden administration. You know who doesn't care about presidential rankings from a group of unknown doofus historians? Normal people. This really shows how out of touch John Biden was with normal people. Going into the election, Johnny B thought he could win on substance over style, policy over charisma. The thing is, Johnny B isn't necessarily wrong, but here's the problem. He didn't have any substance because his policies were a huge embarrassing failure, and he damn sure didn't have style and charisma. It is damn near impossible to get the message of substance to the masses when you don't have the charisma to attract crowds. And it's damn sure impossible to get the message out when your candidate can't put together sentences. John Biden was a disaster behind the microphone. This dude would be reading the emotion off the teleprompter. Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. Smile. This man is dangerous. Angry face. As you guys know, the biggest message of the Biden campaign, it was that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy, which means the entire foundation of his campaign was a lie. And that's not the only lie that Johnny B told the last 4 years, obviously. Hell, there were so many lies it's impossible to keep up. But deacons at Woke United Methodist, they were pissed off with Johnny B over what they felt was the biggest lie. When John ran for president in 2020, he promised that he was going to be a transitional president. He was going to serve one term, then he would ride the seductive stallion into the sunset to retire in his Delaware dungeon. But when it came time for Johnny B. Biden to step aside, when it came time for Johnny B. to relinquish power, he outright refused. Ironically enough, John Biden spent the last 4 years criticizing the Trumper for refusing to relinquish power while he was doing the same damn thing. Which leads to the biggest regret from John Biden the last 4 years. He regrets listening to Democrats. He regrets listening to Granny Nancy and Charles the Schumer. He regrets listening to deacons at Woke United Methodist. He regrets listening to the entire country when we begged him to go away. John Biden's biggest regret is stepping aside and allowing cackling Cam Harris to become the replacement loser. Why? Because John Biden believes that he was going to beat Donald Trump. What? Excuse me? You actually believe that you could beat the Trumper in a presidential election? You, the guy who was sinking faster than the CNN Titanic. You, the guy who could not pay people to attend his rallies. You, the guy who was arguably the most disliked president in my lifetime. You were going to beat the Trumper? While John Biden didn't outright blame Cam Harris for his embarrassing failure, his embarrassing exit in politics, I get the feeling that he does regret supporting her candidacy. That is, if you can call what Johnny B and pretend Dr. Jill was doing support. It was clear to me that the pretend doctor was not supportive of the pretend vice president. I guess Jilly B has something in common with the rest of the country because we didn't support her either. I almost feel bad for John Biden, almost. I noticed a prevailing theme throughout this article with the Washington Post. Most of John Biden's regrets, they are centered around decisions that other people were making for him. Most of his regrets have to deal with John Biden listening to everyone else instead of John Biden trusting himself, trusting his instincts. When you think about it, everything makes sense. Joe Biden was a shitty leader because he failed to do the one thing that leaders do. Joe Biden failed to trust himself. He failed to trust his own instincts. Basically, Joe Biden failed to lead. Give me your thoughts on this. Joe Biden filled with regret as he returns to his Delaware dungeon. He regrets Merrick Garland. He regrets the foundation of his campaign. But most of all, he regrets stepping aside for cackling Cam Harris. Now, obviously, Cam did not have a chance to beat the Trumper, but do you think Joe Biden had a chance to win if he hadn't stepped aside? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. Best way to contact me is through email, btlkc84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys tomorrow.